You're about to learn all about the type tool in Photoshop. Let's get started on the type tool. The first thing that you need to know is where it's at. So let's go ahead and I'll show you that. So down here, I'm showing you with my mouse, this is the horizontal type tool. This is what we use primarily when it comes to using just our normal type tool. Let's go ahead and bring it up. I'm going to click on it. And the first thing that you do is you draw on the space and you draw like almost like a rectangle for where it is that you want to type. So now that you have that, all of this popped up. There is a new layer in our layers tab. And right now it looks like it's a pretty small font for my canvas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to change the font size. So instead of 72, I'm just going to type on my keyboard 200 for this. And now I'm going to check and write out a word. So you just type on your keyboard whatever word that you're wanting. And as you can see, nothing just happened. Well, it did happen, but it's the wrong color. So how do we change the color? Right here is actually how you change the color. It's not going to be down here like for the paint tool. It's actually up here. So you click on this and then you change the color. So let's say that I want to do something like this. You can say, okay, I like it. So we just created our own text. And the way that you choose what text it is that you're using is up here in this section. So right here you can change whatever font it is that you're wanting, and you can also download your own custom font and it will bring it up in here. Let's say that you want to do a font that is maybe either more thin or thick. You would change that right here as well. So a great place that I like to go for fonts is DaFont. It's a website and they have tons of free fonts. So what I did for this is I just went to dafont.com. Okay, so I came here to more options and then I came over here to 100% free, submit, and then all of these are, you can download them. Let's say that I really liked this one. I can press download. I just downloaded it, open it, and you just press this. You press install, and it just installed it, and now I can open up Photoshop. I'm going to select my text tool. I'm going to make a box where I want my text to go. And then right here, I'm going to check my text. And sure enough, it's the one that I just downloaded. And so I'm going to type out, this is our new text, our new font that we just downloaded. So that was super easy. There are tons of fonts on DaFont. The next thing that I'm going to teach you is how to get a little bit more creative with our fonts. This is a great title. I like it as is, so I'm just going to either press enter on my keyboard and come down, or what I can just do is create another layer as well and just put it underneath. I would just come down again and I can paste the text there. And so let's say that I'm wanting to teach you a couple different things. Me just having a couple different versions on separate layers helps it to be a little bit more organized for me. I'm going to show you how you can customize your fonts within Photoshop. What's cool is that there's like some guidelines a little bit to show you how your spacing is and stuff like that on Photoshop. I can also come to my layers and I can select all of them at the same time and move them all at the same time if I wanted to get them wherever on the canvas that I think is best. So right now, this is just a normal font. So let's say that I just selected this font, and if I wanted it all to go to the left of the box that I drew out originally, I would press left. If I wanted to go to the right, I would press right. If I want to go centered, then I would just press centered. That looks good to me. And so once you have your text how you like, the next step that I would do if I was wanting to get a little bit creative with my text is I would double click it and I would have a little bit of fun with it. Let's say that I was wanting to do a stroke and okay, the size. So right here at the very bottom, I just created a stroke on the outside of my text. So it's almost like a border on the outside of my text. And the way that I just did that, I just double clicked on the right of this box and it brought up this layer style. I can adjust my layer style in multiple ways. I think that this just makes it a little bit fun. You can do a color overlay. You can do an outer glow on the outside, which you can't see right now because it is a white background. But let's say that I had a black background, which I can easily do by taking my rectangle tool, and I can change the color instead of white to black, and then just drag that underneath all of these layers so that it's at the very back. So now you can't almost see the stroke, but if I were to put an outer glow on this one, I just double clicked on this box, it brought up this box. Now if I put an outer glow, you would see it has a glow. And you can adjust the settings. I like to adjust them depending on what I'm doing. So I just added a stroke and this outer glow to this bottom example. I'm going to press OK. And so that's the first way to change it. Let's go ahead and do some other fun ways and mess around with it a bit. So right now we're on this next one up. I'm going to double click on it. So let's say that I wanted to change this to have a texture over the top of it, something like that. I would come over here and I would choose whatever texture it is that I was wanting. That would give it a bit of a texture. Let's say that I wanted to do some more things on the top of that. I would just keep adding them on. Let's say I wanted to do stroke, but change the color. So instead of black, I would make it a white stroke. Change the size of the stroke. So now let's go ahead and move up to our next word, which is also create. And what I'm going to do with this one is going to be a little bit different. What I'm going to do is I'm going to press Alt on my keyboard and drag it down. And right now it doesn't look like much, but I'm going to change the color. Let's say I want to make it white and I want to put something like that to kind of create a popping out at you effect. And then let's say that on this one, I want to make a border around it again with my stroke. And it's just making a really cool, quick effect. And I just did that by quickly grabbing it and dragging stuff around, moving it up. And so let's go ahead and go up to our next one. And I'm quickly gonna affect that one next. And for this one, let's say that I wanted to do a drop shadow. So you can see the drop shadow when it's a white canvas in the background, but you couldn't see it when it was black. So let's go ahead and play around a bit with that. Let's add on gradient overlay. I can choose my gradients right here, and I can find a color that I'm wanting. Let's say this one or this one. I'll do okay. And then I can choose the scale of the gradient. I can choose the position of the gradient. And I've actually customized certain fonts that I've created just by doing some of these little changes. And so you can really get creative with it, if you know what I mean. And I would say that the text tool, the type tool, is a really fun tool just to try out. And I definitely recommend trying a few things and playing around with it and adding on layers, like as many layers as you want to create some cool effects. You can drag it up, you can drag it to the side, and it just makes it come to life. The more that you get creative, the better and better that it becomes. So now let's go ahead. I'm going to show you another example. I'm going to hide all of these. I'm just going to quickly also show you that you can use the vertical type tool. So let's say you were wanting to do the same thing but up and down, and you were trying to show, let's say, something to the side, and you were just being creative, like for a website or something like that. You can write it this way. I'm going to change my color, that way you can see it. It is just like that. And make sure that you have enough space on your canvas for you to be able to have that. So now you can type up and down, side to side. But what other things can you change when it comes to the text tool? You can come up here. Here, let me see if I have a way for you to see it. So right here is where it is. It's in this sidebar. And I just clicked on this. It's the properties for the text tool. And you would just be able to change the settings right here. And so what I just did was I scrolled down one and it chose another type. And you can change your spacing to make these letters all a little bit closer together. You can change this spacing this way. So let's say that you're wanting more spacing. That just spaced out your letters a lot more. Let's say you were wanting them all to be a lot closer together. You can change that right here with these settings. So right here again is a second place to look at fonts, your types, but yeah, so you can go ahead in here and you can convert this to a shape. You can do different quick actions, which is awesome. You can do the type options, and this gives you other options as well. And then this gives you the height and the width, so you can change that and customize it to be specific to something that you are creating. That is how to type down and change your different settings over here. Great job. You just had a lot of fun with me using the text tool. So now let's go ahead and do another little project together. I'm just going to use my type tool. I'm going to bring it out and I'm going to use the text that I got off of DeFont, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to type out my word. I'm going to make it bigger. And so I'm going to duplicate this by pressing Alt. And I'm going to change the color again of this one up here. Something like that. And then you can press the up and down, right and left arrows to place it into place that you're wanting. You can ease it in, or you can just drag your mouse around and see if there's a specific look that you're wanting it to look like. So I'm kind of liking something like this for this one. And so what I'm gonna do next, so first I'm gonna rasterize them, and now I'm going to merge them. Now that this is rasterized, we can add on different effects and drag it around, and we can no longer use the type tool and, like, let's say I wanted to say, instead of create, like creator, I wouldn't be able to just backspace and go in with my text tool. Now it is permanently merged together and it's not editable anymore. Okay, for this example, what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to use some of my other tools that you might not have seen me use yet. So Okay, so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go over here to this blur, sharpen, blur, smudge tool. These are all three paired together as a shortcut. So right here, I'm going to go to smudge tool. I'm going to change my brush up here. Let's just say I want to use this brush for now and change the size. And so now what I can do is I can just play around with it and see what happens. So that was a little bit too much. So I'm gonna do Control Z and I'm just barely gonna touch the bottom and I'm gonna bring it down. And so these two colors are now melting together. The top is still a little bit more intact and I can actually now just do the same thing a couple times on this same thing and it'll smudge it around. Another way of doing this is using the liquefy tool, which I can show you right now. Okay, so let's say that was the one way to smudge out the bottom. Let's try another way. So we're gonna go up here to our filter and then liquefy. Click that. And now this window is gonna pop up for you like this. And now you can use your brush and sort of mix things around. And right here you have multiple options. So you have your reconstruct, you have your smoothing, you can twist it. And so these are all fun things, especially for when you're creating or doing art. Being able to have these as options as well really does change a lot of options. So let's say I wanted to start out by bringing some of these down into points. And then I might go back in again with my smudge tool. But let's say we're just playing around. We're just having a little bit of fun, getting creative. That's what it's all about, is just having fun and creating. So good. So just play around with that a bit, and then once you've got that down, it makes it a lot easier for when you want to do your other things. So let's go ahead and press OK for now, and then I'm going to play around a little bit more with the smudge tool and just bring some of these lines down, and it's kind of creating a fun little effect. It's almost like it's just melting. It's melting, melting. And this tool, it takes a little bit of processing. So I can tell that my computer is running a little bit more right now than normal. Now I'm just going to use my brush tool a little bit and clean this up just a bit. I'm going to do a mask over it. And I'm just going to paint the mask where I think that it didn't do the best job. So this is just me kind of having a little bit of fun playing around. That is kind of a fun tool. And so now duplicate it. Great job. We just finished this example. I quickly turned a generic font that I found on DeFont, and I turned it into something that you wouldn't look at it and be like, oh, that's just a generic font. We got to use some new tools within this example. We used the smudge tool. We also used the liquefy tool, which are great for when you're creating art. Great tools to learn and to know. And you are now an expert at the type tool. You know how to create words and text in Photoshop. I taught you how I can add layer styles to add strokes around the outside of my text or around my text to make a different effect. And so we used a few different layer styles to make your text stand out and pop out from the rest of the texts. You know all about the vertical type tool, the horizontal type tool. You know how to adjust the spacing for your type tool. You know how to change the color for your texts. Now you know how to install fonts, and you are now an expert at the type tool. Great job, and I will see you in the next lecture.